Welcome to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Scesney from Grand Prairie PD. I am really looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to the show, Chief Scesney. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You'd be doing me a favor if you call me Daniel. My last name is tough anyway, so that's simpler.
Perfect. I appreciate that. I always feel so weird when people say that because I'm like, oh, like I want to be professional, but I really do appreciate you
I
saying that.
asked my entire team calls me Daniel, so no worries. That'd be
Okay.
my preference. Yeah.
I love that. I was hoping that you could give us a little bit of background into you. I'd love to know who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. Gosh, we got an hour, right? Okay, so I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I grew up in Camarillo, California. It's at least when I was there, it was a strawberry farming community. Now you have to like hold your pinky out now when you take a sip of your cocktail if you live there. It's changed a lot. Um, uh, I grew up on a surfboard, so I love the ocean. Lost my mom when I was very young, 8 years old. Really had a huge impact on my life. So my dad and I grew up with my dad at that point until I was 17 when he died of a heart attack. He took the loss of my mom really hard, so he just really didn't take care of himself, and so I lost him. And pretty much overnight, I've got brothers and sisters, but I had to figure out um, where I was going to live and how I was going to support myself. And so around that same time, my oldest friend, Ryan Miller, had come home from Marine Corps boot camp leave, and he had, a brand new car with probably like 20% interest and, a jazzy dress blue uniform. And, all the girls were paying him attention. And I thought, hey,
Sure.
man, that seems like a good plan. Sign me up. So, Easter Sunday, I found myself standing on yellow footprints at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, which to your Marine listeners, they'll know exactly what I mean by that. Um, Spent 4 years in the Marine Corps as military policeman. And from there, my ex-wife, I've been married twice. My ex-wife uh, was from the Dallas area. And so, like many good husbands, when deciding what to do, I listened to her and came to the Dallas area and became a Grand Prairie cop. It was by far one of the best decisions I've ever made. Um, I've sort of done a lot of things here at Grand Prairie PD. I started out as a street cop and then moved into a street crimes unit. Spent time doing narcotics and undercover narcotics. Did major crimes detective as a homicide investigator. Moved from there into supervision. And then about 10 years ago, gosh, I can't believe it. No, 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 8 years ago, I became an assistant chief. Did that job for a few years. And then the last five, I've been the police chief. Um, I have two kids. My oldest is 21. He wants to be a cop. Um, my youngest is 15. She wants to be a doctor, and she is by far the brains of the operation. She could certainly do it. She loves theater, and it's fun to watch her do that. My son's mother is from my ex-wife. My daughter's mom, I lost her to breast cancer in um, in 2018. So I've certainly seen my share of loss and grief, which I'd be glad to talk more about that if that's the direction you want to go. And yeah, so I've been having my hand on the rudder here at Grand Prairie PD for the last 5 years, and it's certainly among the greatest honors of my life.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate you sharing a little bit into your background. I wanted to ask you really quickly because I'm really interested in knowing this. How do you feel about your son wanting to be in law enforcement?
you know, it's interesting
Mhm.
because policing today looks a lot different than when I got started. So um, I was actually in the police academy when the World Trade Center was hit by evil terrorists. And so at that time, the entire country rallied around their police. And at least in my view, it was something that just overwhelming community support. And that has changed a lot. So I worry about that for him, but I will tell you, he's a stud, man. He is a stud. He does jujitsu and he's very, very smart. And so he's dead set on it. And I don't think what I think matters. He's got his mind made up, and I'm proud of him. And I take that as a compliment also. So worry, flattered, all of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I do think that's a compliment. Like he wants to be like you.
I want to be more like him. He is I'm a very lucky parent.
Yeah, no, I love that. I know that you experienced unimaginable loss. You shared that. You lost
Yeah.
your mom at a really young age. You lost your dad. You lost your second wife to breast cancer.
Yeah.
How did all of those events shape who you are as a leader today?
You know, it's hard. That's a hard question to answer because certainly when I was going through those things, I didn't really have a true understanding of how it was impacting my life. And I now, but through the benefit of counseling, by the way, have seen that is really compounding. And I'll give you an example. After Stephanie, my late wife, died, I went and got some therapy called EMDR. Don't ask me what it stands for, and if I know you're a professional in this space, so you know what it is. But to anybody that doesn't, it feels a lot like witchcraft, hocus pocus. It's very strange. But I bring it up because I remember when I was first going through it, like the day one, I wanted to just kind of hammer out um, talking about my wife and working through that. And the therapist took me all the way back to 8-year-old Daniel. And I remember when she showed me this list of things at the end that we were going to work through, that was like traumatic too, because I didn't realize how sucky my life had been through all these things. So kind of going full circle to your question, I think I really compartmentalized uh, each thing, buried it in the sand, and I just worked really, really, really hard on other things to distract me from my personal life. And so it's probably these challenges that I had in my personal life focused my professional life because it was an escape, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's healthy. In fact, I would make the case that it isn't, but that was what I did. And it took me until my late 40s to kind of figure out that the way I did it was not the right way. But here's what it did do, and to answer your question as far as shaping me as a leader, it teaches you a lot about empathy and understanding that people have a lot going on in their lives. And so, something that seems like um, is real egregious, or there's a lot, very often there's something behind what you're seeing that kind of accounts for the action. And I think my life experience has given me an opportunity to sort of open that aperture and see the human side of people a little more so than just the work life.
Yeah. Man, I could so relate to some of the things that you just said there because I did the same things throughout my life, and the various trauma that I experienced was, bury it as far down as you can and posture up and keep going. And I think that I was an extreme perfectionist. I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I was always trying to prove people wrong or trying to make a name for myself because of the things that I had been through. But I also think that you have to when you experience things so young, you have to um, learn how to survive
Yeah.
on your own, and so there's almost like a character trait that comes with that, where it's like, you had to be an adult at a really young age. You had to grow up really quickly. And then, for me, like I was on my own weekend after I graduated high school, I was on my own completely and never have been back since. And so I think that there is this different life experience you have when, you're almost trying to, at least for me, like I was trying to escape my past as much as I could. And I think that to know what it's like to survive at a young age, to know what it's like to go through hard stuff, to know what it's like to like shove things down. And, you do start to understand what other people are going through, even if it's not the same. And I think so often the things that I hear all the time is, and maybe you've heard this too, or like, well, what does this person know about what I've gone through? And sometimes I think we have to recognize that maybe not every story is the same, but everyone has a story. And when
Yeah.
we can like open up our eyes to that and be like, wow, like everyone has something that they've been through in their life and something that we can all learn from too.
Yeah, I think that's insightful. I will tell you that when I'm hiring police officers, I, some of the things that I prefer to see is people that have experienced what it's like to be hungry,
Mm,
right? And when I say hungry, I don't necessarily mean a drive to. I mean hungry, like my belly's
mhm.
empty, um, or have experienced some type of hardship. Because I think empathy is a cornerstone of being a good cop, because you see the worst in everyone. And so having that empathetic side is very helpful. And that's one upside to going through hell, is you experience a lot. And so when you see someone else that's going through that place, you recognize it. So I think you're right. It's you know, it sounds great growing up with a silver spoon in your mouth. And God, I wouldn't have, it would have been great, but it certainly, those folks don't often have the same level of understanding that some of us that have been through some junk have.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and I'm sure it's a tricky thing too, because when you think about like the next generation or you think about your kids, like you don't want them to have to struggle like you did,
Yeah,
right? You don't want them to have to go through that same adversity. And but then you also want them to have those traits of empathy and, and so I
yeah,
think that it's tricky because you want people who are, coming up behind you in this profession to, have it easier in quotes, and maybe not have to
yeah,
go through as many of the hard things that you did, but at the same time, it's like it taught you so many life lessons, and the things we go through have taught us so many lessons that we've been able to now help other people because of those lessons. So it is a hard balance. But, I've met a lot of people in my life that struggle with empathy, and it's very like cut and dry, black and white, like don't understand the nuances of
yeah.
situations. And it is hard because, when I look at someone, both of my parents were drug addicts. My dad was incarcerated, and
Sorry.
so I know that lifestyle, and I I understand what people go through when they're in addiction. I understand, what it's like to be in a domestic violence situation and how that feels as a kid. Like I know a lot of different things through that lens. And so like that's how I see the world now, right? I'll see someone who's homeless and I'll be like, I wonder what happened. Like I wonder
Yeah,
what life experiences they went through to get them to this. Was there abuse? Was there, and the people in my life that don't have it, they're like, nope, they just have the same choices as everybody else. And so I think
yeah,
that it does teach you a lot about life.
yeah. You brought up my kids, and you're right. I want them to have not experience anything that I went through. But I don't know if you're a spiritual person, but I would tell you, like my daughter, for instance. She'd be embarrassed if she knew I was talking about her on the podcast, by the way. She was 8 years old when she lost her mother, and
Mhm.
I was 8 years old when I lost my mother. And so, um, while it was incredibly difficult for me, I was also thankful that I had that experience so I knew what she was going through. And I was able to make sure that a lot of the mistakes that my family made, I didn't make. For instance, I found out that my mom, who passed from cancer, I found out that she was dying of cancer from my best pal who lived two doors down.
Mm,
My family thought the best thing to do was to shield me from that. They didn't share any of those things. So, when I would hear her in pain, I I was looking at that through the lens of an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old or 6-year-old because, it's a long progression. So I just assumed that she was sick, but I didn't understand terminal sickness versus the flu. It just wouldn't go away. And so finding that out from a buddy was not the way to go. And so those small things, and all those things I had to work through, as crazy as this sounds, turned out to be a blessing as it relates to how my daughter went through this because I knew very quickly what I needed to do and what I damn sure shouldn't do to help her. My son, same thing. He was older, so he was able to process it a little bit better. He had a great relationship with his stepmom. But again, my experience helped. That being said, even though they had those experiences and the benefit of my early experience, they've had their share of hardships also, Paige, and I think that's helped shape them and their empathetic journey also.
yeah. I don't think it sounds, I understand that it sounds weird and crazy because I felt that way too, but I can relate to, you know, am I happy that I went through the things that I went through in my life? Not all of them. Some of them, like, do you wish some things didn't happen? For sure. But do they become one of your biggest strengths in life? I think yes, and I think that I am, to your point, also thankful and grateful for some of the hardest things that I've been through because I don't think that I would be where I am right now. I don't think I'd be on this podcast with you talking about wellness and so passionate about wellness and if I didn't have certain perspectives and life experiences. And so as hard as those things were, I don't think that I would have the same impact that I'm hopefully, I'm going to say hopefully having today because, you don't know what you don't know, and so I think it does become kind of our superpower in certain ways. But
You're
I
having an impact.
thank you. I
Just
appreciate it.
need it. Just need to impact one person, anyways. It's all that it's worth it at that point, right?
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to talk a little bit about your career. I really
Yeah.
like to play this game of peaks and pits or peaks and valleys. Could you share maybe some of your professional peaks, some of your greatest accomplishments or greatest memories within the career, and then maybe some of the harder things that you've gone through as well?
Well, I suspect you're not interested in like things that are on my resume, but you're talking about like war stories. By far the funnest time in my career was working narcotics.
Mhm.
There's something fun about being able to come to work, not shaving, wearing holy jeans and a dirty t-shirt, and you get to go into all the nightclubs, and it's a fun job.
Yep.
And so, in fact, some of my closest friends that are still here, we all got very close working narcotics together. It's a really good job. The downside of that job, though, is crooks don't just work 8 to 5, so it's very, very hard on your personal life, and so finding that work-life balance is pretty tough in that unit. Uh, I would tell you the most rewarding time of my career is solving homicides.
Mm,
That it is. It, Seeing someone's life turn completely upside down when you have to tell them that someone they love most in the world has been taken from them is really, really hard. And then being able to get them some sort of justice while it doesn't bring their loved one back, it is a very rewarding um, part of the career. And I was able to do that quite a few times. Even that, though, while your typical hours are 8 to 5, you do get called out a lot, but you never turn it off.
Yeah.
You're always thinking about the case, always. So from the time you get up in the morning, you get in the shower, you're thinking about how, what am I missing? What stone have not turned? And so I would say those two things have been the funnest part of my career. I've got the car chases and the wrestling with crooks like everybody else, but I would say that the best part were those two. Um, as far as valleys go, I would say definitely that since becoming a police chief, an assistant chief, when I I would start by saying my losing my late wife, and I know you're asking about my career, but just stay with me for a second. Um, she was very career driven, and I was very career driven. So we would spend time together, sitting next to one another, and she'd be on her phone, and I'd be on my phone, and we'd be working. We weren't together. We just happened to be in the same proximity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I call that a peak because I have regrets about not capitalizing on that time and prioritizing work more. She'd probably smack me for saying that because she was career driven also, but it's a regret. Um, I also tie that back to my career because I didn't realize at the time how much stuff that was going on up here that would come resurface after losing her. Like I'll give you an example. You know, as a major crimes detective, you respond to all unattended deaths, and so Grand Prairie is a city of about 210,000 people. We have a lot of people that just pass away, and some of them for nefarious reasons. But you have to go and make sure it's natural. So there are um, particularly people that pass from cancer, they take a lot of medicine. That's just how it is. And nightstands are covered with pills. And I bet you I'd seen that 100 different times, Paige, on just death investigations I was working on. And I remember one day walking into my room, and I'd gone in my room now at home, and I'd been in there 100 times, and I looked over at the nightstand, and it was covered in medicine bottles, and I'd seen that 100 times, but for some reason that particular day, it reminded me of all of the death investigations I'd went on, and then my mom's nightstand, and it all just came kind of hit me at one time. Again, even though I'd seen it a million times, I just never had connected that, and so that was definitely a valley because it impacted me personally, which you carry into the job,
Right.
and so there is this cumulative effect of things you go through in your career that you never know when they're going to come back and punch you in the face. And for me, it was a nightstand of pill bottles, but that was tough. And the other thing is, in addition to my personal stuff, I became a police chief at the absolute worst time. So we had like Daniel gets appointed to police chief in December of 2020. Then comes COVID,
Yeah.
which completely turned our model upside down because you can't police a city with a bunch of sick cops. Then we hit George Floyd like a month or two later. And it was just, I'm telling you, it has been one crazy thing after another. We even lost a West African banded cobra in the city of uh, where how this guy got a West African banded cobra, I don't know. But I can tell you that you just can't head over to the hospital and get antivenom for that. So that was a fun problem to work on. Um, it, yeah, there. I've had my share of valleys for sure.
I'm laughing because I'm just imagining a loose snake in town running around. But I think I really appreciate you tying the two together because I think that we often forget that you don't just have work stress and work stuff. You also have life going on, and everything does compound, and it all is intertwined. The way that you show up for your family is going to be impacted by some of the things that you're going through professionally, and the things that are you're going through professionally are going to impact your family. Did I say that the same way? Vice
Yeah, I got
versa.
it.
You
Yeah,
got it. You got
yeah.
it. They both connect to each other. So I appreciate you saying that because, you guys are humans and you have work life and then you have life going on too. I know you said EMDR helped you. I know that you said
Yeah.
therapy was something that you did. Um, how do you think you were able to build resiliency to those things and to get through those things? Was it those two, or was there anything else that you did that really helped you to offload some of that stuff?
You know, I, I'll tell you that I went in there as a skeptic. So,
Mm.
um, and let me set the table, okay? So, as I mentioned, my son's mom, she and I are divorced, and so we tried to go through counseling, and it was a terrible experience. I'm just gonna just quickly say that, like 2 weeks after we talked to this person, uh, my agency ended up arresting him for being a pedophile.
Wow.
We had no idea at the time, of course, but you can imagine how you're getting advice from somebody is the most evil, vile person you can imagine. So um, it was a church related counselor. So I had it that counseling is a waste of time. It's all garbage, and I didn't trust any of it. Well, fast forward, I was in a class at TCU. I teach there, by the way, go Frogs. Uh, and somebody who I admire and respect very much told me that they had real good success with EMDR. And immediately I was like, calling BS. But um, I know that he, and I don't want to share his business, so I'm going to keep his name private, but I would tell you that he is not in law enforcement, but he is an executive at the highest level that you can imagine. Very, very, I mean, this is a guy that meets with uh, presidents and congressmen, and he knows what he's doing. Okay. And he's like telling me, Daniel, you got this wrong. EMDR was life saving for me. I said, okay. So based on his recommendation,
Sure.
I went, and I'll never forget. I sat down with the therapist, who is now a friend of mine, and I told her, I said, look, I'm not going to read any book that you have. I'm not going to come here every day just to talk. I don't want to sit on the couch. I want a plan. Like, give me a plan. And she said, okay, A, I don't have a book. B, how about you let me be in charge for a little while? And it'll take a few months. And I really appreciated that direct approach that she had with me, because she's right. I need to just take my hands off the reins and let the pro be the pro. So after it was, I decided to trust the process. And I would tell you that there was no light switch that turned on. It wasn't like I went in there on a Monday and Wednesday I was healed. That's not what happened. I went through the process, and it was a few months for me. But I remember that I had a box of, hero stuff, award for tail kicker of the month, whatever it is, right? And I didn't put any of that crap on the walls. I hadn't. And then one day I was in my office, I decided, and I put all my stuff on my wall. And then the light came on. I'm like, why the hell did I just do that? What's different? That had been sitting there for years. And then I start connecting the dots. There were a couple other things that happened where I had met a person, and we got to talking, and it was pretty obvious that things could have progressed a different direction if I chose to go that way. And uh, early on, I would have felt very, very guilty about that conversation, because I just still felt like I was married, right? I didn't act on it, but it wasn't because of guilt, is my point.
Mm.
And that was clearly because of EMDR. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And so because of that, I've been very, very vocal with my team about my experience with EMDR, and therapy, because my thinking is if they're like me, they're thinking this is hocus pocus and it's garbage. And if anybody is interested in what I got to say, like I was with my friend, then maybe they'll get in there. And it was a life changer. I credit it for giving me at least my quality of life back for sure.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit offline about, and to your point of you talking to your team about these things and opening up and creating that safe environment where they can reach for resources.
Yep.
And I know I was this way, and you mentioned this earlier too, that you were this way, and maybe not understanding when you're younger how a lot of these things can compile and
Yeah.
how there's, cumulative stress and cumulative trauma that happens over decades, and you don't understand the impact it has until there's a crisis or until there's a moment where, you've reached your limit. How do you talk to the younger generation about being more proactive with their wellness so that they don't reach that tipping point? And how are you getting them to, I guess, buy into stuff when they don't feel like they need it yet?
Yeah, that's a real tall order because young cops think they're invincible, and I am in no exception. I was in that same boat. Um, but I am pretty transparent about where I've been in my journey in hopes that they will at least talk to each other at a minimum. If I can get them to just go car to car after these tough calls or circle up the team behind a Walmart and talk through it peer to peer, I see real value in that. I think the wrong answer is send them home and not give them a chance to unpack it. We in my shop, we try our best to watch our officers and the calls that they go to, and I'll make them go to counseling and see a therapist. And I do that because I want them to be able to blame me, say, "Well, the old man's making me go."
Right.
Uh, but in my mind, it's absolutely critical. I would tell you to this day, there are certain things that I will see, or certain places I'll drive by, or certain things I will smell. It just takes me to a different place. And so I don't have the answer, but I know I don't want them to go through it. And
Yeah.
I feel like the best way to go through any problems with a bunch of your family. So hopefully by talking to their brothers and sisters, it'll help.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love how you said in my shop.
Yeah,
I've never heard that before. I wrote that down, but I do think that we underestimate the power of conversation and talking about stuff. And there's so much connectiveness that happens and solidarity that happens when you can talk about things. And I think that historically, and we talked a little bit about this offline, but I think historically, talking about stuff and being vulnerable and, seeking out resources if and when you need it was perceived as weakness.
you're right.
And I think that the more that it becomes normal, the more you can normalize those things of like, yeah, that's just what we do. We just talk
Yeah.
about stuff,
I,
then the less weak it becomes.
yeah. And also, I think there's a fear associated with
Mm.
losing your job. If I think historically, police departments and police administrators, if an officer was experiencing depression, the first thing they do is want to take them off the street, take their gun away because they're afraid they're going to commit suicide with their service pistol. And the reality is, they don't need a service pistol to commit suicide, right? And so what we need to do is a connect them to resources, but b make sure they know that their job is not in danger. It's no different than breaking an arm or a leg. Well, it is different, but it's treated the same differently in that. I'm sorry. We should be treating it the same way. In other words, if you have something going on up here, let's get you to the pro that can fix it, just like we would a broken arm.
Yeah.
And that's really what we've done here. We try to have a therapist on staff, and the officers know that if they go to her, she will work through with them what she can. Sometimes we got to outsource that to because it requires a little bit more. But it's not unusual at all for her to say, Chief, Officer such and such is going to be off for a little while. And I don't ask questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I just trust her. And I've got multiple cops that are on my department right now that have had taken time off for mental health leave, gotten stuff figured out, and they're very, very productive and good to go. And I'm hoping that that model will continue to gain steam. And the other thing I will say is, for it to be effective, you got to be absolutely confidential. You cannot, as soon as you betray their trust and their business gets on Front Street, it comes crashing down.
Yeah.
So it's been really effective, and hopefully we can keep that ball rolling.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit more about some of the other things that you guys are doing organizationally? Because I know that wellness is something that is more of like a holistic view to you. And you have like four, you said four legs of the stool and
Yeah,
the things you guys are doing. So if you can highlight that, I think that'd be great.
yeah. So we look at four different things: spiritual, uh, emotional, financial, and let me unpack those as we go. Spiritual, of course, we have chaplains on staff. We don't prescribe any particular religion, but we want officers to have resources if they want to need somebody to help them with their spiritual journey. So we've got, I think, three chaplains. They're Christian, but we have a Grand Prairie Police Clergy Coalition with 100 different churches and all different denominations and so forth. Um, so there's that. We have physical fitness is part of it, which I don't know if I mentioned that when I was just running down my four here. But, for me, physical fitness is critical because it's tied into both spiritual and emotional wellness. But I also am mindful to know that not all officers um, are at the same place.
Yeah.
So our goal is to meet them where they are. So, for instance, um, we used to have a big push under my predecessor for CrossFit. And CrossFit is great, don't get me wrong, but it's not for everybody. And
Right.
so I'd have a big subset of my officers that just weren't doing anything. And then we had a black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu come to me and say, Chief, I want to start a Jiu Jitsu program here. And I was dead set against it because I thought our cops were going to be karate chopping everybody they came across. And I couldn't have been more wrong, Paige. It has been fantastic. Our officer wellness is way up, officer injury is way down, suspect injury way down, used for escalating tools. In other words, I grab you and now you go for my gun. I got to get a bigger tool. That's way down. Um, our insurance claims are down. I mean, jujitsu has been awesome. So like 60 officers, give or take, that hit that routinely. That's just their thing. But again, it's not for everybody. We do cardiac screens, and where you run on the bike and you got the O2 or CO2 or whatever that thing you look like the guy that fights Spider-Man. Uh, and the goal there is we have some of our cops that a little overweight. And so we'll put them together with a doctor and they can discuss some weight loss opportunities. One of my cops is on the, I'm going to mess this up, the Wegovy type weight loss drug.
Yeah.
This guy looks like he should be on the cover of Chicks Dig It magazine. He is in good shape. So there's spiritual, there's physical, there's emotional. Um, that is kind of what we talked about. Cops talking to other cops. We got peer support. Uh, we have yoga, which is sort of physical also.
Yeah.
Uh, and then last one is financial. Too many cops get divorced because of financial stress. So we put them together with a financial guru and with the goal of if they follow the plan when they first get hired, they should be millionaires when they get done here and retire. And so those four things have been sort of the backbone of our strategy, meeting cops where they are and making them healthier from A to Z. We don't have it all figured out yet, but I think we're on the right track.
I really like that you said the word strategy. And that was actually something I wrote down earlier when you first stepped into um, the office where you're like, I'm not going to read your book. I'm not going to do this. Like, give me a plan, and I think that when it comes to wellness, it's important to have a strategy. And
Yeah.
what are the things that are important to you? Why are those things important to you? What are the steps that you can take? And you're completely right. It's not a one size fits all, and
No.
everyone's going to need different things. So I really appreciate that approach of like, hey, we understand that not everyone's going to be into jujitsu, but maybe they'll be into yoga. They might not be into XYZ, but they're into this. And so when everyone feels valued and heard and supported, then that creates more of that culture of overall wellness because now everyone is taking the things. I used to call it the charcuterie board, and I've said this a few times on this podcast, but
I
I
like that.
got I got a I had someone clap back at me on that because they were like, it's too hard to say. And so they're like, you got to say the buffet instead. And I was like, okay, buffet, charcuterie board, like whatever works for you. But it's that like, take what you want, take the things that are interesting to you that are going to help you. So I really appreciate that approach.
Yeah, it's certainly been a shift for us. But I'm convinced it's the way to go. Because let's be honest, you're not going to get a 6'4", 280 pound guy, um, that's going to want to run 10 miles on the weekends, right? I mean, it's a little bit different for their needs than maybe a 110 pound guy. So, maybe I'm being overly generic and stereotyping, but my point is, maybe David Groggins, that's the seal, right? He'd probably beat me up right now for saying that. My point is that some fitness ideas are whichever leg of the stool is different for others, and I just want my cops to feel comfortable just doing what they think works best for them, and then it seems to build momentum. Once they start, seeing some wins and getting some skins on the wall, then it seems to build momentum, and before you know it, they're really addicted to being healthy.
Yeah. I'm a really big believer in small steps or small changes create big impact over time. And maybe something doesn't happen overnight, but like you said, it's that momentum that you're looking for. And I think historically, and I've had a few conversations about this recently, and I don't know why, like it got me emotional like the last time I talked about this, so I'm not going to do it this time. But I think it makes me so sad that the conversation has always been like, how can we get people to survive? And I think that, yes, of course, you want people to survive, but I think that the bar should be so much higher than that. Like, how
Yeah,
can we get you guys to thrive? Like, why have we settled for survival all of these years when there's so much above and beyond that you can strive for, like, and I like that's my hope for everybody, obviously, like I work with the first responder community. So that's my hope for you guys. But I think for everyone in my life, like I don't want people in my life or my community to just be at that bare minimum survival mode. Like I want there to be an elevation of these ideas of like, how can we like keep going? How can we raise that bar to where you're living the best life that you possibly can? And so that's my hope through all of this is that like, that momentum builds and it's no longer settling for the bare minimum.
I appreciate you saying that. Too many cops die too soon. Our life expectancy is far lower than our civilian counterpart, and I think it's for the very reason you mentioned. It's a long career of fast food windows and elevated cortisol and all kinds of peaks and valleys, to use your term. And I agree with you. We've got to figure that out so that we can be around for our kids.
Yeah, 100%. What words of wisdom would you share with someone who's earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier or something that's helped you along the way.
I would say two things to that. One, as it relates to this topic, um, you need to learn early that taking care of yourself is not selfish; it's strategic,
Mm.
and it's important for longevity. The second thing I would say is, um, Surround yourself with people who will tell you the truth, even when it's not something you want to hear.
Mm,
That sometimes wisdom is keeping your mouth shut and listening.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, my
Thank you
pleasure.
for your time. I really appreciate it. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to sign off on, but that's all I have for you. And I had a lot of fun this
No, I
conversation.
likewise, I did as well. Thank you so much. I have nothing to add other than thank you for what you are doing to help first responders stay healthy and keep fighting the fight because we need people just like you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll
Of
talk to you
course,
soon.
it sounds good.